good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you are. We're here this morning for our Ease India webinar with Murugaraj. Murugaraj is from Thulga Publishing Services. So really happy to have him here with us today. So Murugaraj has been associated with academic publishing since 2004, when he started as a copy editor. He has since trained copy editors and managed editorial teams in several typesetting service providers in India. He's been training copy editors through Editors Essentials and providing training and consulting on editorial teams. He founded Thulga Publishing Services in 2020 with the aim of helping researchers in successful publication of their work through its editorial services and publishing consulting services. So I think I will hand over now to Murugaraj and let him make a start. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy, and a warm welcome to all the participants for this session on understanding academic publishing workflow. As the title says, our focus is going to be a little more on, exclusively on academic publishing. So basically, research and publication I consider to be two sides of the same coin. Publication without strong research is useless, and research without publication is useless either. You don't really get to see the research doesn't seem to get to see the light of the day. So in India, there is something called a mythical river called Saraswati. The myth is that it comes from below, and the three rivers that come together is a place what we call Triveni Sangam. Right? In research also, that's what we consider. So the two sides are very obvious. As I said earlier, the research part and the publication part are the two sides of the same coin. So we can see, but there is a third aspect to it, which is the writing, which it's not mythical, unlike that example that I gave you, but it is not seen in the entire process, at least explicitly. Okay, so the research is basically of two things. One is the subject matter, which is ably guided by the professors or the supervisors of the PhD student. And the other part is tools and techniques that are needed to conduct a good research. Okay. In India, the number of PhD students who register has been on the rise for the past few years, especially. For example, there is a report by All India, there is a report by the government called the All India Survey on Higher Education. According to the survey, in 2014 to 15, as many as 117,000 people registered for PhD. For the year 2021-22, which is the latest report that is available, it is almost double with 213,000 PhD students registering. So in the last 7 years or so, we have seen that the number of people who register for PhD has almost doubled. At a compound rate of interest, it is 10% year on year. Okay. So the question is the spot in this registration, PhD registration, ably supported by the support structure available for PhD students, whether it is in terms of helping them understand the tools and techniques that are required to conduct their research, write their research, research papers, reports, theses, and many other things that needs writing, documentation, and most importantly, the publication process. Until a few years ago, the number of publications by a researcher is considered to be the most important factor that decides the quality of that researcher. But with publications gaining more and more prominence, especially in the last few years, the H index, how many times a work by a researcher is cited, that is also getting equally important, has become equally important. So in this session, what we are going to do is try to understand the publishing workflow with a special reference to academic publications, and what are the various expectations at each of these stage and how to overcome rejections during these stages. So I talked about the tools and techniques that are required for a PhD student, especially. There is some efforts, there is a lot of efforts, in fact. One of them is the University Grants Commission's mandatory paper on research publication and ethics. Okay, that covers various aspects like how to conduct research, what are the different types of research, and understanding journal publication processes, the impact factor, various metrics that are associated in the field of research. All of them are covered. But I believe that this being taught in the very first semester of their research work, when these research students come to a stage where they are ready to publish their paper, it is almost 2.5 years, or at least 2 years since they complete this paper. So one of the things that I believe is lacking is the kind of knowledge PhD students need at a certain point of time. So basically, I would expect that this part of identifying a journal and other things are taught at a little later level so that they will be able to immediately apply that. So there is a large gap between their learning and application, and it is very easy for any human being to miss that knowledge that we gained a few years ago. So in this session, we will talk about the important stages of academic publication with an aim of understanding why an academic paper can be rejected at each of these stages and how to avoid them. Okay. So the publishing workflow looks like this. It starts with the uploading process and moves on to the desk review process, followed by peer review, editorial decision making, typesetting, and publication. Of course, the last two stages are not decision-making stages. The first few stages are very important. In order to give you a comprehensive workflow, I have included right from upload to the stage of publication. Okay, so we'll talk about the first 4 stages a little more in depth in the next 30 minutes. So the first one is the upload stage. So we assume that you have, the researcher has completed their work, are ready to share their findings. So the uploading process is nowadays has become a bit more sophisticated for most large publications, right? So there is something called journal manager or publication assistant, and a lot of other names are there. Basically, they are systems that will enable the user to upload their research work. Upload their manuscript. Okay, so these things are a bit different between different journals and publishers. So it is important to understand important to choose the right journal at the first step itself. Because there are various considerations in uploading a manuscript. For example, what is the platform on which it is written? Even though MS Word is the most common and most widely used writing platform, LaTeX is an equally important writing platform, and especially in fields like mathematics, chemistry, physics. So what type of format, which platform needs to be used? So that's a main consideration. Followed by how to deal with figures and tables. Can they go in places where they are cited or near the places where they are cited? Or should they be collected at the end of the manuscript? Or should they be separately uploaded as a zip folder? So there are various considerations. And the third and the most important part could be data. How are you going to upload data? So there are supplementary options available to provide data separately from the main manuscript, okay, which sometimes called the ESA information. And whether a cover letter is needed and other things. So there are various considerations depending on the journal and the publisher. So by understanding or by choosing the journal before you do that, of course, we do not randomly, pick up a publishing website and then submit it. We do that research. And in fact, choosing the right journal itself is it's an in-depth topic that is learned during the period of research. So by understanding the right journal expectations, we can upload the documents without any problems. I mean, relatively, this stage is relatively easy. Okay, you do not really need a lot of, you do not really face a lot of problems there. So it's basically about how it is presented and uploaded. And the main thing comes when the first checkpoint is the desk review. So who are desk reviewers? Desk review is done by who we call desk reviewers. So who are they? So they are basically experts or subject matter experts in specific fields who are employees of the journal or the publishing house. Okay, so they are not volunteers. They are employed by the journal and they act at the first level of defense in the publication process. They're basically the gatekeepers. Okay. So what they do a macroscopic analysis of the manuscript that you submit. Okay, at a very high level, they do not get deeper into the content, but at a very high level analysis of the manuscript that you submit. Okay, so data says that nearly 65% of articles that are submitted are rejected at the desk review stage itself. This is for Springer. Another major publisher, Elsevier, estimates this number to be around 50%. What it means is that, as I said just a moment ago, this is a cursory review when you compare with the peer review on a comparison scale. So if 50-60% of articles are rejected at this level itself, we can infer that we need to take this stage a little more serious. Okay, we need to understand the expectations, the first level. I mean, of course, this is one stage. It has to go through peer review and then revisions. So all of them involve different expectations. But the kind of expectations of the desk review is relatively straightforward. Okay. And the rejection rate is also an important factor for someone to identify the journal, right? Okay, the rejection rate is really high, which means the journal has stringent expectations in terms of the manuscripts that they publish. On the other hand, if the journal has a high acceptance rate, let's say 70-80%, we can infer that the journal publishes kind of anything and everything that comes in its way. Okay, so this number, the percentage of accepted manuscripts, is a good indicator of how stringent a journal is. But again, a rejection at the first stage of, a first level rejection may not mean that the article is not worthy of publication. So at this stage, it means that the article does not follow the expectations, especially with respect to manuscript preparation. Another data says that nearly 65% of papers that are accepted and published, they are rejected at some point of time. When we say rejected, it is not summary rejection. They are sent back possibly for revisions. So once the expectations on the comments are addressed and resubmitted, and they are accepted for further stages, and they see the end of the entire process getting published. So a desk review can completely summarily reject, or it can send it back with some comments at the early stage itself. So what are the various things that create problems for a manuscript at the desk review stage? We can just consider three groups of problems. One is the compatibility issues. What I mean is that the journal's expectations in terms of manuscript submission. Every journal has its own guidelines to authors for submitting manuscript. Okay, so it could be a length consideration, it could be the type of articles that is needed, and it could be the aims and scope of the journal, okay, related to the work that you submit for publication. Okay, So for example, some journals do not accept reviews. Okay, book reviews, for example. So if you send a book review, obviously it is going to be summarily rejected because this article type doesn't even fall under their publication type. On the other hand, most journals, almost all journals, publish original or research articles. Okay, but let's say the articles, the journal says the length should be around 8,000 words and the maximum of 8,000 words. And the article that you submit is around 10,000 words. Then you may be asked to cut down certain parts or, rewrite in such a way that the entire manuscript fits within that 8,000 benchmark. Okay, so that is the first thing. Could be the second one is the comprehension issues. Okay, and basically the message is lost. Okay, so this can be easily avoided by writing it properly. We'll come back to that in the next slide. And ethical issues are another possibility. Okay, so in terms of ethical issues, the most common and the simplest way of checking is similarity score. Most journals will have the expectations in terms of how much similarity score that they allow. It's usually around 20%, 15 to 20%. Some journals may have a lower threshold or some journals may have a higher threshold, but it is important to address this. Once again, there may be other ethical consideration related problems which the desk reviewer may not look for or analyze at this stage. Remember, this is only a cursory review, cursory in a relative sense. Okay, a bird's eye view, if you can call it. Okay, so how to avoid rejections at the desk review stage? The foremost problem, according to data, is the aims and scope of the journal and the work that you are submitting, they do not match. So above all other considerations, ensure that the manuscript that is submitted meets the aims and scope of the journal. And every single journal provides clear author guidelines, submission guidelines, how to prepare the manuscript, everything is available. So it is important for the researcher to go through the entire document, understand the expectations, and then submit. Okay, most of the times what happens is people are in a bit of a hurry. They want to submit their paper and get it published as soon as possible. But in our hurry to submit the paper and get it published as quickly as possible, by submitting a manuscript that does not follow the standards expected, what we are doing is actually extending the time, extending the duration, because it comes back to you for corrections and then it has to be revised and resubmitted, takes more time. Okay, so it is better to spend the time that is needed at the beginning stage itself so that we can spend a lot of time. We can spend, we do not have to worry about revisions and resubmissions at a later stage. And there are a lot of things about writing, but one thing at this stage that increases plagiarism score or the similarity score is people tending to cut or copy and paste, information. Of course, our research, nobody's research is standalone. We stand on the shoulders of somebody else who have already done research, and we are leaving a trail for others who, follow. So we are one of the links in a long chain. It's a continuum, right? So we do literature review, we refer a lot of work, we gather information. But when we simply try to use that information as it is published already, it increases the score. In my experience, I have seen that whenever the author has written the manuscript in their own words, synthesize as you would call it, rather than simply extracting information from individual articles or published work. Synthesize the information and put it in your own words. That will increase, or that will rather decrease the plagiarism score, similarity score. So writing in your own words is a most important criterion to ensure that you have a lower similarity score or the same level of work, same level of references. Okay, when you copy paste, obviously this is going to shoot up. When you write in your own words, there is a possibility that there is a very good possibility that it is well within this threshold that is expected. And of course, there is support system available for you. Copy editors are there. They can help you in ensuring that all of these points are taken care of. There are even the publishing houses, they have their own author services, could be editing services or manuscript preparation. So there are copy editors who can help you in terms of editing the manuscript, helping you avoid plagiarism score by teaching you how to, take information, synthesize, and write on your own. Writing consultants rather, not copy editors. And one of the other things that enhances the chances of revision is the manuscript is less comprehensible. Of course, the desk reviewer does not read the entire manuscript in depth, but sometimes the manuscript is so poorly written that even a cursory glance tells us that this manuscript needs revision. So in these cases, a writing consultant or a copy editor can help increase the chances of acceptance at this stage. Okay, so the next stage is a peer review stage. Okay, unlike the desk reviewers who are employees of the journal or the publisher, peer reviewers are volunteers, as we all know. In specific fields, they are published authors. They have at least quite a few articles in their name, and they volunteer their time to advance their field. Okay, and if desk reviewers are the first level of gatekeepers, peer reviewers are the intellectual gatekeepers, and they do the microscopic analysis, a worm's eye view, if you can call it. Okay, so they go through the manuscript in depth. They read the manuscript in depth and decide or recommend to the journal whether this article, let's say article in general, so whether this article meets the expectations or the quality expectations of the journal, or this article is a good fit for the journal. Okay, so peer review is done based on guidelines that are laid out either by the publisher or third-party organizations. Okay, and peer review is such an important process because it is run by a highly unorganized set of volunteers throughout the world in various fields. Okay, so in fact, every year in the month of September, we celebrate something called the peer review week in order to celebrate the process of peer review and also the peer reviewers. I think this year theme has been decided. Voting happened sometime back, and the theme has also been decided. Innovation and technology, if I remember correctly. I mean, I don't exactly remember the entire title, but something related to innovation and technology. So there could be 2 or 3 reviewers. 2 is the most common number, and it could be single blinded, double blinded, or sometimes even triple blinded, I think, which is very rare. So when we say double blinded, the reviewers do not know who the author is, and the authors do not know who the reviewer is, so that this increases fairness. Because of late, we have seen a lot of issues related to the peer review process itself. Okay, so a double blind system enhances fairness in terms of recommendations. Okay, so at the end of the process, they make recommendations like whether to accept the paper or send it for revision or reject. Okay, So what do they normally reject, or why do they reject a paper? So there are a lot of reasons, unlike in a desk review, which are relatively short, a lot of reasons with respect to peer review. Okay, if you consider a typical article that has an introduction, materials, methods, discussion, and conclusion, we can see that issues and hypothesis or research question or inadequate literature review are most common problems in terms of, in the introduction part. Okay, and so this also leads to the entire research being subpar. Okay, because an invalid hypothesis or a poor hypothesis, a poor research question with inadequate literature review, it's not going to provide a sound, sound findings. So the next part, it could be poor study design, or the data is inadequate. People try to fabricate data when the data is inadequate, or they just manipulate data if they want a particular kind of result. So inadequate data, fabrication, falsification are some of the most common problems with respect to the second part. I think I'm really sorry that the poor study design has repeated here. And there could be issues with the analysis, the methodology, and also inferences incorrectly made from the data and analysis. So these are all some common problems. There are quite a lot of other problems, but these are all very common. So this is with respect to the specific research. And at a generic level, they may think that the research doesn't really add value to the body of knowledge. So it's only incremental or duplicate research. So they may recommend that there is no worth in publishing this paper in the journal. There could be lack of innovation. There could be a lot of ethical issues. It could be with respect to authorship. It could be with respect to conflict of interest, plagiarism related issues. So a lot of these issues can arise at the peer review stage. Once again, the writing also comes into play here. Comprehension problems seriously affect acceptance at peer review stage also. Unlike the desk review, the peer reviewer reads a manuscript thoroughly, right? And ensures that the intended, the message that is intended to be communicated is done properly. Okay, so comprehension problems can also pose a great challenge in terms of acceptance at this stage. So invariably, peer reviews at the end of the peer review stage, the authors receive feedback. Most often it is for them to revise the manuscript and resubmit. Okay, so what happens when an author reviews or receives manuscript for revisions? Okay, so let's respect the feedback. And a very common thing that is being said here is that the feedback is not to the person, but it is about the paper. Okay, so we'll understand that these people have spent a lot of time, their own time, volunteering to advance in their own fields of research. They have read our manuscript thoroughly and provided constructive criticism to improve the manuscript. Okay, so what is expected at the end of the stage? At this stage is that every single comment that is given by the peer reviewer is addressed. As an author, one may think that the comment is not needed or may refute that comment, but still that needs to be justified. So what you do is go through each of the comments one by one. Okay, and okay, so before I come here, so each of these comments needs to be addressed. If you accept the recommendations of the peer reviewer with respect to a particular comment, yes, you make the changes, mention that it is addressed. If something is not acceptable or you have reasons not to carry out that recommendation, or probably the reviewer misunderstood. After all, everybody is a human being, so there is a possibility that the peer reviewer misunderstood, could be attributed to poor writing also sometimes. Okay, so if you are not agreeing, if you don't agree to the recommendation, explain why, substantiate why the original is correct and why you are not incorporating the change suggested by the reviewer. Sometimes the reviewer make recommendations to include certain citations, tables, include data and all of things. If they are already available, it is easy for you to incorporate them and revise. Sometimes you may have to rework on the data part. Okay, sometimes the author may believe that most of the changes provided by most of the common suggestions provided by the peer reviewer are not acceptable at all. So on rare cases, the author may go for appeal, meaning that they do not agree with most of the changes provided by so we are talking about not about the cosmetic changes, but about the contextual changes, of course. Okay, but this appeal process is very rare. And once again, publishing houses have written about it, saying that not many appeals have successfully accepted at a later stage. So, how to avoid rejection at this stage? My suggestion is that we create a checklist of all things that could create problems. It's a long winding process, but it would be thorough, right? We'll list down all the points, right, from mentioning that, okay, is the research problem accurate? Is the data adequate? And so on and so forth. Do we have problems related to, or if have all the authors that contributed to the paper that are listed there contributed substantially? Somebody who is a friend who edited the paper cannot become a co-author, right? So that person has to substantially contribute in terms of intellectual knowledge. That is not there, you cannot simply add it. So list down all of the points. This could be an extensive exercise, but it will help us address all of them. Okay. For example, certain subjective cases, some of the instances it could be an yes or no answer. For example, is it clear or not? Yes, no. It could be Likert scale for subjective points. And if the problem is with respect to writing, comprehension, and other things, once again, if you have not hired a copy editor already, you can hire a copy editor at this point of time. So these professional people can help you revise a manuscript in such a way that the intended message is clearly communicated. Okay, so these are all some of the things that you can do at the peer review stage. So at the end of the revision, resubmission, the editorial board may want to send it back to the reviewers to validate, which happens most of the times. Or if it is at a very light level, they make the decision, they will check it. So it could be accepted when all the changes that the reviewer recommended, suggested, and you have done revisions according to the expectations, then the paper will get accepted. Despite all the changes, if the paper still does not meet the expectations in terms of quality and presentation, there is a possibility that it is rejected also. Or a third possibility is that the manuscript can be sent again for revisions, once again noting down points that are not clear, points that will help improve the manuscript. So once it is accepted, it goes for the typesetting process. As I said earlier, the typesetting process and the final publication process are not really decision-making processes. They do not, stop a manuscript from being accepted into production. So this is just to understand the entire range of activities that happen. So the various activities that happen during the typesetting stage are image processing, copy editing. So you may wonder that we have been talking about copy editing in every stage. I'm talking about them not because I'm a copy editor in nature. So at this stage, copy editing happens to ensure that the manuscript is in compliance with the expectations of the journal, right? For example, the journal follows American English or British English. the author has used or followed a different variant. So the copy editor will help fix it. There are a lot of stylistic aspects that are expected of a journal, right? And so those things, for example, sometimes the journal says author year system, and the manuscript could be written with a numbered system. So these things are usually, most of the times, it is addressed at the early stage itself. Okay, during the time of submission itself, the journal says we follow this particular style. So you are expected to follow that. So to this end, tools such as Zartiro are very helpful. So they help you not only provide and that not only make the process of citations and generating references easy, they also help you in converting from one style to another. Okay, so some techniques that you follow at the initial stage can help you. So the copy editing here most of the times focuses on hygienic aspects, okay, like fixing basic grammar errors, spelling mistakes. It could sometimes go on to the next levels also, right? But it is very rare that a manuscript accepted for publication is really poorly written. Again, it is not completely ruled out, but the chances are very low. The percentage of articles that need a substantive editing after publication, after acceptance, is very small when you compare with the other possibilities. And then it is typeset, and the galley proof or the first proof is generated, shared with the author and also the publisher point of contact, usually the project editor or the publication editor. Okay, so they see the manuscript as they will be printed. Okay, so it's a galley proof, and any changes, in last minute minor changes, okay, at this stage no major revisions are accepted either. Okay, so those changes are carried out in the next step, and the final proof is created, and print files are created, usually XML files and PDF files sent for print and other things. So even at the stage of decision making here, okay, once the article is accepted for publication, nowadays the online publication has become really common, very common. So the moment an article is accepted, it is immediately posted on the website, on their websites. Okay, and it may be processed at a later date and actually published at a very later date. When I say actually published, it is print and comes as part of a journal issue. Many journals are online issues for that matter nowadays. Okay, so they don't really wait for issues and other things. They can post it. So the publishers have templates, and these manuscripts are run through these templates and they are immediately published so that your research is immediately available. Okay, so that's one possibility. And once it is done, I think that is the last step, and time to celebrate. Your article is accepted and posted on the site, or it is included in an issue. So the entire process comes to a stop there. So from here on, it is about disseminating the knowledge, which is a completely different topic. Probably we will discuss that in a later section. Okay, so some of the closing remarks. One is that, as I said earlier, it is important to focus from the beginning on all three aspects of research. The tools and applying the right tools and techniques to do research. That's number one part. Zartiro is one example that I gave you, which really helps in simplifying the referencing process. Not only it helps you in the right kind of citations and styling references, it can help you in organizing your research overall. It is a reference manager. Zartiro is a reference manager, but it can help you organize your research. And then understanding the platform. For example, most of us use MS Word for writing. Understanding the features that are available in MS Word to help the process of writing, help improve the process of writing. and the habit of writing itself. Because that's one thing that as we grow old, we slowly lose that habit of writing. I mean, the common problem, the common culprit we all, incriminate is the use of cell phones, right? But still, it is important for researchers to cultivate, if it is not already done, the habit of writing and also continue to write. Make notes as we do the literature review and make summaries, synthesizing information. So all of these things that will help you communicate effectively. Okay, so that's, and then another point is the choice of journals, understanding the expectations of the journal, and preparing the manuscript according to the expectations. This is kind of a menial task, sometimes consume a lot of time, sometimes it is mundane and boring, but that cannot be an excuse for not preparing a manuscript well for submission. Because as I said earlier, if it is not done at the first stage, in the production cycle, it's a very common phrase, quality first time. Okay, if it is not done right first time, if it is not done right at the first step, you are bound to do that at some other stage. But this time it is going to be more anxious. It's better to do that right first time when you are more relaxed. Okay, and then understand the different stages and what all of these stages expect, each of these stages expect, and prepare the manuscript. So basically, all of these things boil down to doing good research and writing it well. So with these two components taken care of, the process of publication itself, or the journey of publication itself, will be a rewarding experience, an enjoyable experience, because publication becomes an outcome rather than a goal. When you do good quality research and do good writing, then publication is only an outcome. Okay, so with that, I stop here, and I think Vivek is here. So Vivek, would you like to go for QAs?
Yeah, Murugaraj, thanks for a very enriching webinar. So the first question is by Lyudmila Minako. So she
Okay.
wants to know, I'm interested in the following question. Where can I find sample regulations for all the procedures of the editorial board of a scientific journal? So the procedure for processing manuscripts, regulations for working with reviewers, guidelines for working with authors, and how should these documents be approved?
Okay, so when I read that last part, how should these documents be approved? I'm not really sure what the approval process means, but I think I can answer the first part of it. Where can I find sample regulations for all the procedures of the editorial board? And a lot of committees are there, third-party organizations, okay, non-profit organizations. Most of the times they lay down regulations with respect to each of these. For example, Committee on Publication Ethics, COPE, extensively talks about ethical problems in research, especially in publishing research. Okay, and things submit. So in terms of submission, I'm missing out an important word here. So something submit. Okay, so that provides you how to identify the right journal, how to ensure that you do not fall into the hands of a predatory journal. Okay, and then the peer review week celebrations, and there is a website dedicated to peer review week, which provides you end-to-end information about what is peer review, how it is done, what are the problems that peer review faces, how to address all of these things. And my knowledge may be limited. I am not aware of one place where all of the information is available but there are many places where you get specific information on specific questions.
Okay, thanks, Murugaraj. The next question is by Sterling Joseph. So, how do I find journals that don't have article processing charges, and also suggest books on time management and motivation for writing research articles?
Once again, I will answer the first question. So the journals can be traditional journals which accept subscription journals, as they are called it. The other part is open access journals. So the only major difference is that, I mean, there are a lot of differences. The major difference is that in terms of the charges paid by the author. In subscription journals, the author doesn't pay anything, but the reader has to buy the article in order to read it. On the other hand, open access journals, they charge the author what is called APC, author publishing charges, sorry, article processing charges, I'm sorry, article processing charges, and that is provided. A good journal, because that is, sorry, so that is another important point when we talk about the genuine journals or predatory journals. Okay, so these journals, genuine journals, they clearly indicate whether they accept subscription type articles or open access articles. So that's number one. So you can, the most common icon is a padlock with a closed, closed padlock and open padlock. So if it is closed, we will understand that it is subscription. If it is open, we will understand that it is open access. The author submission guidelines of each journal will explicitly mention the choices available for the author. Most of the journals nowadays are hybrid journals, which means that they accept both type of articles, subscription based articles, open access articles, but that decision is taken only after the peer review and the editorial board decision. Okay, once the editorial board decides that this article is good enough to be published in our journal, they say you have to make a decision whether you want to go for subscription based publishing model or open access model. If these journals, if there is a journal that asks you to pay money at the time of submission, I usually say, please run away. Okay, so they are predatory in nature and they are going to, you are going to lose your work. Okay, so to directly answer your question, I indirectly answer because most of the journals are hybrid journals. So you cannot say this journal is subscription based, this journal is open access based. Okay, so it is hybrid most of them. And even if you use journal finder tools, okay, most large publications, and there are two third-party tools like Jane Journal Author Name Estimator, PubMed, okay, and the proprietary publishers, they have their own tools to identify or help you make recommendations in terms of the journals. You can choose whether you want to go for open access or not. Okay, so that's a possibility. Books on time management and motivation for writing research articles. I think I'll collate it and then share it as a handout later.
Yeah, that would be fine, Murugaraj. And the last question that I have in the Q&A is, I often struggle to find motivation to publish as a researcher. It often feels like I'm only doing it for career advancement or to meet PhD requirements. I'm not finding much personal meaning in it. I'm questioning why I even want to write articles. Can you give me any suggestions to address this issue?
That's an interesting question. I said interesting because when the carrot doesn't work, the stick has to work. Okay, so you have mentioned that you are possibly doing it because of the PhD requirements or for career advancement. Okay, even though I mentioned earlier that H index has been gaining a lot of importance nowadays, but still one of the parameters that decides how good a researcher is the number of articles, the number of publications they have. Okay, so that carrot sometimes work. Most of the times it works, but I really don't have an answer. I'm sorry.
Maybe the researcher gets tired by the length of the process or the duration of the process. First, they have to do the research, then they have to do the writing, and then they have to like run around to do the to get it published and maybe even pay the APCs, which for some journals can be quite high. So one of the options could be the Akash Ganga website that has been launched in India, for which the APC charges are very low. So I would request the researchers from the West to please check out the 9 initial journals that this website has come up with, and it's a joint venture of by ex-MD of Sage, Vivek Mehra. And there are some questions in the chat box also. So Suchita Gera wants to know, in order to get a job in peer review or peer review management, what qualifications and skills do we need? Do we need a PhD?
I think Yatindra Joshi has answered that question. PhD is not basically a requirement, but there should be a lot. You should have several published papers. Because so the only way people measure, I mean publishers. When I say people, I mean publishers measure a person's eligibility to become a peer reviewer is by the number of publications. That's the most common yardstick now. So you should have a lot of publications. Even if you don't have a PhD, you will be considered for peer review. So the moment you start, I mean, the moment you have published quite a few articles in your field, normally these publishers send out a request invitation. Okay, inviting you to be part of the peer review process, and it's not a job, so it's basically a peer review. Peer review is a volunteer activity, so it's an invitation based thing.
I would also like to take this opportunity to provide some follow-up comments for Suchita's question. The book that we have recently published, Copy Editing: A Closer Look, in the chapter on copy editing and allied services by Dharmesh Patnaik, there is an entire section on peer review management. So she can also like check out that particular chapter and that particular section, maybe even get in touch with the author, because this particular service is being provided by IT enabled services companies also in India. So that that's another career option that people who are related to publishing or copy editing or editing, they can look up. So we don't have any more queries in the chat box or in the Q&A. And it was
I
a
think in the, I'm sorry, Vivek, in the chat box, I think someone said the question is not answered. I don't know whether it is the same person, Paul, right?
yeah, it was
That's
a
addressed?
query about whether the participants who are attending this webinar, whether they will get a
Oh,
certificate for
okay,
attending. So
okay.
I think Mary will address that in the follow-up email that she will send when she sends
Okay.
the recording of the session. But
I think Lucy has addressed that question.
okay.
If the person is not a member of not an EASE member, so they have to send an email to Mary via the email secretary@ease.org.uk to request for a certificate. And Yatinda has also given a recommendation of Helen Swartz Books and Website. Probably we'll try to figure out that and share the link when we share the recording.
Yeah, sure. So thanks a lot, Murugaraj, for the previous webinar. We were struggling to finish within time, and maybe because it was the first time for us, but today we have finished well in time and we have answered all the queries, and really happy to see a lot of people from all around the world come and attend this, and we hope there will be many more from you and others who are like connected with Ease India and with Ease, and we will meet again very soon. Thanks all
Yes.
of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity, the second opportunity. And after last time, I have received some feedback from our participants about how to present a few things also. So I think I have tried to incorporate them, and hopefully this time it went well. And thank you, Vivek. It has been wonderful being part of ICF and with Ease recently. And thank you very much for the opportunities, not just for me, but for a lot of participants who get to understand different walks of the publishing process. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Have a nice day.